Hey everyone, today I'm creating a series of cards using leftovers and what I am calling card making fodder. Maybe pattern paper fodder, maybe just paper fodder, I don't know. On the left hand side you'll see my box of leftover paper scraps that I've been using for some time in my videos. These were leftovers from a massive project I did many years ago where there is 1¼ in strips and I've just put them together in bundles. On the right hand side, you will see a container of really nicely bundled together bits of leftover pattern paper with, I guess, a white matting layer. So I use lots of scrap white paper and I use lots of my leftover paper pads and I just matted them up. So whatever size they were, I added them to white paper and I now have what I'm calling my card making fodder, which means I can use that for different projects to add some really fast, quick, interesting elements to my cards. As I'm laying these all out onto my desk, I'm creating an absolute mess. There are some that are thin strips of paper at the front, there's some medium and bigger ones at the back. I did these in bundles just while I was watching TV or doing something else and I could multitask. And for a lot of it, I just used double-sided tape. So I went through all of my leftover bits and pieces of pattern paper, put some double-sided tape on the back, attached those to some white scraps, cut those all down, and then I put some double-sided tape on the back. So all of these elements are actually ready to go. And at this point, they're not organized. So earlier in the video, I showed them nicely in a little tub. This is before that, where I just dumped everything out on my desk and thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to create some cards with this today. Because I had all different color combinations and everything was just from many different companies and many different collections, and some of it was actually scraps of just colored cardstock, I decided to just pick something that I wanted to use up and then see how I went. With this pattern paper here, I have 2 sheets of it and it is 12 different panels on a 12 by 12 sheet. So they are all 4 by 3 inches. Now you can see when I'm cutting these down that I'm actually lining them up and cutting a little bit more than I think I need. That was just so I don't have any of the extra, like the wrong color of the panel next to it. It just means it's a little bit easier. You don't want to be matting these in white and then having an issue. So I just did that really, really carefully as part of the first step. Now I've got all of these panels and I'm getting myself a little bit organized and there is absolute chaos all over my desk here. Now, I don't mind working with this level of chaos. If you don't like this, then I do have a slightly different approach later in the video that might be of interest, but I just had stuff everywhere. And the reason I really enjoyed it was it meant when I had a piece of pattern paper that I had decided I wanted to use as my feature, I was able to dig through lots and lots and lots of different options. So this is a really great way to practice this is a great way to practice matching different colors together. So if, like, honestly, it's paper. So if I make a mistake or I don't like it, I can throw it in the recycling. But what tends to happen most of the time is you actually get a really good color combination and you create something that someone's really going to enjoy receiving. And honestly, if you're sitting there watching a movie or listening to an audiobook or multitasking in whatever way aligns well for you, then this can be super, super relaxing. Now here I've just put the pink panel across the back and then I've just added the 4 by 3 and a simple sentiment. For a couple of these I do something similar, and on the left you can see I have a pile of, they are 5¼ by 4 plain cardstock panels. I always have a stash of these because I like to have a white border around my cards. Now, some people do a card that goes all the way to the edge of a standard A2, so the full 5½ by 4¼ But for me, I really like the white border because I think that matches the white border that I have with the pattern paper. Now, if I'm doing a different style of card, I won't always do the same thing, but for the most part, you'll see me having that regular size border. I do really appreciate, by the way, the cards that some people do that have the 1/8 of an inch border. So it's just a little teaser around the edge. They can look really, really nice as well. You can see here that I've got some leftover white cardstock that I'm just putting behind this design element. It's just, I do this sometimes, not all the time, but I do it if I think that the card's going to feel lopsided. So if the pattern paper that's underneath it, so that blue panel, was made out of cardstock or very thin paper, that will make my decision. So with cardstock, obviously it's going to be a little bit taller, and with thin pattern paper it'll be a little bit flatter. And so I just make my decision as I'm going to decide what I think is necessary for that card. Now, because I've made a couple of these and I've just added one little bit of design element behind, there's not too much space with a 4x3 panel, so I did find it a little tricky with these ones to have too many choices or make things look a little bit different or creative. So I didn't do like the full 24 set. I just did a few of them, and then I put the leftovers of these 4x3s aside to use for another project. I might even actually put them into my leftovers box that I donate to a local holiday program. Kids absolutely love to make handmade cards, and I think some primary school kids would absolutely love these little images. So that might be a good addition. So there's some really cute supplies for them to work with. Now, this is also a really great way to use up leftover sentiments. You'll notice that I have one of those little trays. They're like frosted white little trays. You can get them from a few different card companies. I think my ones here are from scrapbook.com, so I will put a link below to those and anything else that I've used today, just in case you're looking for them. I have a set of the bigger ones and then the half-size ones, and I tend to have them sitting on my desk with lots of little projects in them or leftovers, and I force myself to not have more things on my desk than will fit in those little trays. So it is a good way to make sure that I'm a little bit more organized and there's a bit more organization to the general chaos that is going on out of your camera field of view. Now I've moved on to my next set of items that I wanted to try out, and these are a little bit different. These are some dinosaur stickers from Journal Say, and I have this pattern paper that is from Paper Tray Ink. This is from an 8x8 paper pack, and I'll put a link to this below if it's still available. They were a very, very, very good bargain. I think they were only $2 for the paper pad, and they had quite a few designs. So that was a little while ago now. I'm not sure if they're still in stock, but I will put something below. The khaki colour paper, or the cardstock, and the ones with the dots actually matched really well with the colour tones of the dinosaurs. So I decided to use those as the basis for most of these cards. And in the end, you'll see I ended up just creating little scenes with the stickers. So I am at my desk surrounded by my new card making fodder. And for these particular cards using these cute design elements, I did not use any of it. So I'm sitting in the mess, but I'm not reducing the mess. I did make all of these birthday cards because I think these will be really nice ones to put in my stash to be donated to a charity that really focuses on children. And they do send happy birthday cards to all of their volunteers and all of the kids who are part of their program. So I tend to ask them what type of cards they are looking for at the moment, and whether that's for boys or girls and what age, or adults. And often it seems that 7 to 12-year-old boys is the area where they have less cards donated. So you see me try and make sure I have a variety of cards that I create for different ages and interests and that kind of thing. And so I'm really trying to focus on doing some things that I think would fit into that age group. So this is my attempt with the little dinosaurs. It was fun to use the stickers, and I will say, because they have they're PET stickers, and because they have clear that goes around the edge of the image, what I did off camera that you didn't see is I actually cut around the dinosaur to remove some of that clear. And the reason I did that is because it can be a little bit shiny. If you chop it off, I think the stickers work a little bit better as part of a collage in particular, but it's just that look that I prefer. The other thing this process gave me some really good practice with is deciding where to put a sentiment so that the card looks balanced. Now, I don't even really know what I mean by balanced, but if you move a sentiment around a card enough times, you will figure out that the entire design or style of the card can look very, very different depending on where you put it. And for me, I tend to kind of put them off a little bit offset or a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left. It's obvious that you don't want to cover up one of your key design elements, but for me, using even just these 2 happy birthdays that are a little separate stamp, normally I wouldn't. Normally I would just use one sentiment that is together, so I don't have to line it up and I don't have to figure out where the happy and where the birthday goes. So that was my version of really trying to push my limits. I was also about to say that I very rarely put a sentiment at the top, and I just did that with the circle for the dinosaur card. So that is also me pushing the limits of what I would do on most cards. If you are enjoying the video, it would be amazing if you could hit the like button. That is how YouTube knows to spread the video to more viewers. It's appreciated. Thank you. The other thing is, do you enjoy longer videos? You'll notice that this one is longer than what I normally create. Normally mine are sort of 10 to 12 minutes. But because I did a really long project here and people have indicated that they like the voiceover or the explanation of my choices, and sometimes that helps with their card making, I thought I will sit here on a Saturday afternoon and do a super long voiceover. But it would be really, really nice to know if this is helpful for you and the style of video that you like to watch. And that just helps me decide what to do with further videos. Do I break them down? Chop out some of these details about what I'm doing along the way and just show the finished product. Yeah, it'd be good to know what your preferences are. Obviously not all videos will suit everybody, but it's good to get some feedback along the way. Now I've moved on to a different style of card, and you can see I've got these rub-ons. These came as part of a freebie, I think, from a scrapbook.com order. And I just thought, what am I going to do with these? Let me try and use them up. They are a different style than I would normally use, but that's the fun of it. I'm sure I can find someone who will enjoy this style to receive the card. So I've just grabbed something that I think will contrast with the rub-on, because the rub-ons are quite opaque. So you can see here, even when I've added it to this wood grain piece of pattern paper, the pale blue really stands out. So I try a few different styles with these same rub-ons, and I do not use up the entire set, but I think I created maybe 4 or 5 cards with it before I moved on and tried something else. The way I decided that it was time to change to a different style of card was often based on how many of the panels I put out. So you can see here, I've got a whole series of the ones with the yellow dots, and I was trying to work out, am I going to use more of these, less of these? How is this going to go? With these yellow pieces here, they really, really also contrast and stand out really nicely with the blue. But they also, this pattern paper, you can see for the one on the right-hand side, it's got this little rectangle sticking off the side. These are actually, what are those cards that people use that are 4x3 and 2x3? I cannot remember for the life of me. But they are those sort of pre-cut cards. Is it Project Life? I think it might be Project Life. And so this one here was actually from, I think it was like a baby set. And this one was, it had a big number 7 on it. And so when I chopped it down to use a piece of the card, I had all these leftovers. And what I found is, as long as, if there's a weird bit on the pattern paper or a weird bit on what I have matted, as long as I put that underneath something else, it doesn't get wasted. So sometimes you will see some pieces of this card making fodder that maybe don't look perfect, or you wouldn't use them for the top layer, or maybe there was some glue on it or something drawn on it. I still kept a few of those that weren't 100% perfect, because I will choose to put them on the bottom and cover up the imperfection, and then again, things don't get wasted. One of the things I always have right next to me is my favorite stamps. Not my favorite stamps probably, but I have a few clear blocks that have some happy birthday sentiments on it in different fonts and styles. And they're also slightly different sizes. So I have my Versamark black pigment ink, which I use for most of my sentiment stamping. And then I have 3 or 4 blocks near me that have the sentiments on the top, on the back, and then I use those to just add a quick sentiment directly onto the pattern paper. So you just saw me do a quick version of that for the previous card. And each time I notice that I've done something specific and for a reason, I'll try and shout out why, because I do think based on feedback that is helpful for others. The other thing that was really important is with my leftover sentiments, some of them are rectangles, some of them are squares. There are circles as well, and you will often find me adding a circle into a card design just to make it look maybe not as angular or as, I don't know, it just seems to cut up the design sort of really nicely. So I think in a couple of these cards, you will see me add just a little circle, happy birthday, and I just think that makes all the difference sometimes with a card layout. Now, this is so interesting watching me do this. This is a little while ago that I recorded this footage, but I seem to have a piece of pattern paper here in a really cute design that I am layering up bits and pieces from the rub-ons. So where I have actually put something onto another piece and then I've chopped off part of the rub-on, I have deliberately added that and layered it onto this one. So it almost looks like it was a bigger piece of paper chopped down, even though actually it wasn't. I just added the rub-ons in a way that made it look like that. So it's a little way to kind of cheat and use up the bits that you've chopped off to the edge, again, not to waste things. So here I am putting this panel over the top of that little rectangle to the right-hand side, where I was saying it looks a little bit strange on the yellow paper. Now, if you don't have a lot of sentiments in your stash, then I find it quite relaxing to sit down and create a whole heap of them to put aside, and it saves me a little bit of time for future projects. I am a bulk card maker, so I often do things, all at the same time. There's part of me that is just always wants to be efficient with what I'm doing and make the most out of sort of my time and my supplies. And I guess the time it took to put the white layers onto all of those pattern papers and cardstock, I did do it over several months just in bits and pieces. And at the start of the video, you may have noticed that I actually had them in different Ziploc bags. So I just did it in batches, and then when I was done, I had something that I could use as a bit of enabler to create some cards in the future. Now, because the VersaFine is a pigment ink, I always stamp it and then move it off to the side so that it can dry properly. Otherwise, I will smudge it and ruin my project. I also put any of the cut-off bits off to the side, and you can see I've used one of the ends of a piece of pattern paper to add almost like a little flag element to the top of the card. Now, while I'm designing the rest of this, that little flag is annoying me. I just think the color of it doesn't quite match and it's not quite straight. And so as I'm putting this together and I am pulling out some little bits and pieces of paper to mat on the back layer, or the back of the focal point, I'm looking at it and thinking, is this going to stay? Is this going to go? I'm really not sure. And then I'm like, nope, it's gone. So I removed it. So if you enjoy having extra embellishments, or some people add like Nuvo drops or little banners at the top or sequins and those types of things, then I feel like the style of card that I'm creating here, which is a little bit more simple, you could embellish them as well. So just either at the end, add your embellishments, or as you go, whatever suits you. Just then you saw me flicking through a whole bunch of different packs of little stickers and embellishments and cardstock cutouts and die cuts and rub-ons. These came in a show bag pack from Paper Rose. They are sold out now, unfortunately, but they had a really good deal a few months ago where you would get some pattern paper and some of their excess stock or run out stock, or the things that were on clearance, or retired items. And so I bought a few of those. I probably bought too many of those because after I saw how fantastic they were, I did go and get some extras, which means maybe they need to go straight into my donation box for the holiday program. We'll see. Now, I was looking through trying to find something and get inspired by something that would help me create my next set of cards. And I picked these absolutely gorgeous drafts. Honestly, they are the absolute cutest. They do take up almost the entire front of the card though. So at this point, I'm trying to work out how can I squeeze in a little sentiment. I didn't like the square. I didn't like anything that was too bold. The ones that I had smaller that didn't have, didn't overlap so much, the sentiment wasn't a good fit. So in the end, I found one that I really liked. I popped that on, and it almost feels a little bit like cheating when the card is 1 sticker and 1 sentiment. But I really wanted to use up the things that I had, and those giraffes were so super cute that I think whoever receives that one will absolutely love it. And the fact that it didn't take a lot of time is probably not too much of a problem. Now you can see here I'm adding the double-sided tape to the back of these panels. There must have been a few that I missed. It's so quick. I literally tear it. I don't cut it down perfectly. I lay it on the back of the pattern paper, rip it off, put it on the next one, rip it off, and you get into a little bit of a rhythm with it. And it just means when you're compiling the cards, it's so much faster to put them all together, and you don't have to rely on so much glue. For me, I use my ATG, I use double-sided tape, and I do use liquid glue. Now, with liquid glue, it is super, super fast and it is relatively cheap to use. I don't use it on thin paper because you start to see it and you see the crease line. Also, if my backing panel is kind of a thinner paper instead of cardstock, I won't use it either. And most of the time when I attach a backing panel to a white card base, I will use my ATG. For this process, I did have my liquid glue right next to me, and so I would reach for it constantly to do things like the little bits to use leftover cardstock instead of using, say, foam tape. And when I'm putting these panels on, this is not normal for me to put glue on the back to add to a white card base, but it was right there and right next to me, and so I could finish the card and move on to the next one. For most of these cards, you will notice that I've actually completed the card and then moved on to the next. A couple of them, I just skipped over the whole sentiment and I was like, I will come back. I'm really not sure what I want to put on this. And hey, that's a cute sticker that I want to use on my next card. Or hey, I'm liking this color combination of some of these little panels. And then you will see me come back to it. I will sort through the cards on the right-hand side and then I'll figure out which ones are missing a sentiment, and then I'll make that decision and move on. The fun for me of working with such chaos is as soon as I think, I'm not sure what to do there, instead of taking a long time to decide, I just put it aside and then I'll come back later. And if you overthink it when you create cards, or you find yourself unsure what to do, anything that you can do that just says, just make a quick decision and move on. Like the worst that happens is, the card goes in the recycling, then maybe that will help. Not completely sure that'll work for everybody, but it might help if you just create a little pile of cards that is the ones that you want to come back to later, or the things that you're not sure about. For these little echidnas or hedgehogs or whatever they are, it took me ages digging through to find a piece of pattern paper that I could put the sticker on. And at some points in the video, you'll see me pull out a sticker, try and use it, and then put it back. And that is just because it's not the right size for what I have, or there's nothing that I think the color will fit really nicely. And so I just put it back and move on to the next thing. With this one, I was trying to find things that would match to the little cute pink hedgehogs. And somehow I ended up with this little combination here. And honestly, I'm not a pink person, but I really, really love that dusky pink color of the panel on the right-hand side. And it worked brilliantly with, I had used some origami papers for a previous project, and I had created a whole series of circles. And so I dug out all my leftover circles, added them into my fodder mix, and that created a really great base layer. But you'll see, no feature element, no sentiment, put it aside. And so now I'm back to, okay, I've got a new of these khaki panels, and I'm a little bit inspired by the pinks, and they contrast really nice with the khaki. So if I can find some interesting reds and pinks that will match up to the flowers, so it'll all look like a nice cohesive card, then I'll find a few more of those, see if I can create some panels that are kind of incomplete. And then off the back of that, I will then decide, all right, what am I going to do to add the feature point to this? And what am I going to do to add a sentiment? Now here, I'm just like, this is crazy. I am up, down, left, right, stick this on, put that underneath. I could not get a combination that was working. So I was just, anything that was a good color match I had sort of on the top of my pile, but it was just not happening. And then in the end, I was like, okay, I've got these two that are similar. And then that is just a smiley face, honestly. Well, not smile, maybe frown face. So I gave up, moved on to something else, added some more of the circles. So this kind of trial and error, really without sketches, without any kind of design, without anything that I'm following, doesn't feel like my comfort zone, but feels really satisfying when you get to the end and you realize, look at the cool things I created with the leftovers. Now, if you don't have as many leftovers as I do, I completely understand. I make a huge volume of cards, but I was shocked at the number of pattern paper pads that I had that were kind of partially used or incomplete, and just how much of this card making fodder I created. So even if you have 3 or 4 incomplete pattern paper pads and you are happy to, maybe some of the pieces are big and you want to chop them down a little bit to create some of these leftovers and do something similar to what I'm doing here, you will be surprised at how many cards you can make. I have not even made a dent in all of the pieces of pattern paper, and these cards, I'm so happy with how they're coming out. I have used things that I wouldn't normally pick. I've used leftovers and giveaways and things that have been in my stash for a long time. And in the end, the cards all look very unique, very different. And if you actually put them on a table and said, come and pick a few cards, there are lots of different styles that would appeal to lots of different people. So if you give cards away to family and friends and things like that, then I feel like this is also a good way to create some variety, so that when you are putting your cards to good use, there are choices for many, many different people. With these circles here, I did chop them in half so that I could put them around the edge of a panel or partner them up maybe with the hummingbird paper on the right-hand side. They do come from the same set, so they match really, really nicely together. And as I'm working through this and I'm trying to figure out where's the hummingbird going to go, is that going to cover up too much of the card, I did give up because the hummingbird was so large that the only way to include it on an A2 card was to chop the hummingbird in half and in a way that just it didn't really look like a hummingbird anymore. So I have these 3 here, I've put them in the corners, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do with my little echidnas or hedgehogs or whatever they are. And this is probably a slightly unusual choice because this is gold and khaki and red, but you will see in a moment that I just tried it out. I mean, it may have worked, it may not have worked. And I think your creative eye will tell you what you like and what will work, but I encourage you to put together color combinations that are unusual. This was a little bit surprising for me that this matched so well. Now, it is the pink tones work really, really well with the red, and it turned out super cute. So these little critters, I had tried so many times to find things to, number one, put the sticker on to begin with, and then to have it as a feature element behind, and it did not work many, many times. But in the end, it came together perfectly. So this is after a few days, and I did a complete reset and I sorted out all of my little paper fodder into this container. So I've got the thin strips together, the smaller elements, the big panels. This would be better for someone who does not like so much chaos. So it's pretty structured over there on the left-hand side. I picked 3 lots of different sort of stickers and design elements. I've then grabbed some backing panels in a color that I think will match the stickers. And then I'm now going through and saying, okay, what am I going to use as my biggest piece on each of these panels? What do I have that I think will match? It is probably really important as part of your stash to have some neutrals. So if you have a lot of pattern papers that have a lot of design on them, or critters or flowers or patterns that are quite busy, even if you have a pattern paper of some neutrals that you haven't used yet, it might be worth just chopping it down and putting it in the mix. Because you can see here, I do have a few elements that are just grey and white, or there's a bit of a chevron design or some little dots or some little watercolor design. But for the most part, the things that I'm putting on the back are not really, really bold. So I find it really important, if you're going to use something bold, then you need something that tones it down a little bit. I guess unless your style is just go bold with everything. You could just put pattern on pattern on pattern. Not really my kind of style though. I create cards that are a little bit simpler. And also I knew that I wanted to use some of the stickers from these packs. And so I couldn't put a sticker onto a busy background. It would just be completely lost. So you will find I did push my limits here by putting a sticker onto a dark piece of the card making fodder. But here we go with one of the strips. It fills up some of the space at the bottom, and then we've just got a standard design with a couple of rectangles lined up and offset against each other. So again, I really do think, please, if you're looking at this thinking I could never do it, you absolutely can. It is trial and error, and you get better with practice over time. So with this one here, oops, just completely smudged my little glue sentiment there. So relining it up, putting it aside, and then I will chop off those ends that are not needed. When I did these cards as well, with the previous ones, you probably noticed that I put them onto a white card base quite quickly. And some of them I put them onto a white card base when they weren't finished. I hadn't done the sentiment. With these ones, I'm just creating panels. And then at the end, I just use my ATG and then add them all to a white card base. So you can see I create a little pile on the top left of different cards that I have created on the red. And then when they're done, I move on to, I think I have some craft and maybe some grey. And then that will complete kind of today's project. So very long video for me today, over 40 minutes, my gosh. But you see here, I talked earlier, take the sticker off, put the sticker back. Is it going to work? Not going to work. And then I find a sticker that I think I like, and then I'm looking through going, maybe the problem is the color of the panel. And so here I'm like, okay, I think is this going to work? No, is this going to work? I tried all those different combinations. This is sped up 4 times speed, by the way. So if you think it's me making a really quick decision, I am 4 times slower than the footage that you are seeing here. And there are parts that I have edited out as well where I was really slow to make a decision, or I was cleaning up my desk or doing some things to reset. So most of the footage I did leave in. So here I am again. I'm trying to use these happy birthdays that is split in 2 halves. This one I've staggered a bit more than what I had done on the previous ones. And again, it's working through my stash so that I use up some of those really cute little happy birthday stamps. Now, working on 4 cards at once, I find that also helpful. Now, you don't have to work on all 4 or 5. You can just work on a couple at a time. But you will see that if I find an element that I like, I kind of put it on top of one of the other panels. And so that's because in my mind, I'm like, okay, I like that. That might work. I'm going to come back. This doesn't work for this card, but I think it matches the red backing panel, or there's something else here that I can put with it. So that happens quite a bit as I'm sort of working through this process here. Are there any stickers or elements or any designs that I'm using today that are your favorites? I really like these. I don't know what era it is, so I'm just going to guess and say, I don't know, is it like the 40s or the 50s but this, the 20s, I don't know, the 30s. This style of sticker, which is what I would call probably sort of retro, they are really, really, really nice. The color tones are really simple. The designs are really simple. And I think if you use like quite simple pattern papers with it, then you don't have a card where the pattern paper doesn't match the style of the sticker. I hope that kind of makes sense. And obviously anything goes with card making. So do whatever you want. Do what you're happy with. But as I'm working through this, these are some of the things that I'm considering. This here is maybe slightly an unusual choice. I've got a red backing panel, and then I've got the pink little mouse picture. But when I put the black on the bottom for the black hello, and it's got the grey, it just all ties together super nice. And when you put it on the white card base with the white panel around the edge, every element on there feels like it ties together really, really nicely. For these here, you will see that across the cards there is a particular pattern paper or a particular paper pad that I had leftovers from. And sometimes, because I create things in bulk, you'll see the same size pattern paper multiple times. And so it was fun with that card at the top of my screen there that I had the 2 squares. I think they're like 2" by 2" squares. And so I just used 2 of them on a card. And so even that felt like, oh, it's kind of nice to have that design choice where happy accident, I just happened to have 2 pieces out of all of these bits that I have here, happened to have 2 pieces that were exact same paper, matted exactly the same way. So I thought I would take advantage of it and see if I could turn that into an interesting card. Now, with these stickers, because they are opaque, you can layer them on top of each other and create like a little scene. So with this one, I took 2 of the stylish ladies and I put one overlapping the other. And so they look like they're kind of walking together or one walking slightly in front of the other. That is something that I would love more practice at. There are some people who use stickers and things like that in their projects a lot. I don't. It's quite rare for me to actually use stickers. So in this process, I was practicing, I guess, a different skill or using a different medium to get the outcome. So definitely encourage you to try all the things you've got and maybe try and use up what you have. With that little square, you saw me pull that off, put it back on, pull it off, put it back on. For some reason, I just couldn't line it up correctly. And because I had used glue that was like liquid glue, I wouldn't have been able to do that. It would have been stuck and I couldn't move it. And so that's one of the reasons why the double-sided tape or even ATG gives you a little bit of flexibility when you're moving elements around your cards. So that is why during some of these cards, that is my favorite process. All right, and moving on to the ones with the grey panel, and I was very indecisive here. These are a combination of PET stickers and I think washi stickers, and I really wanted to try layering things up. Can I create an interesting design with the elements in this little sticker pack? What I did find is most of the elements were quite large, or they had some kind of border around them. For example, it wasn't just a polar bear, it was a polar bear on a square of sort of cropped like ice behind him. And so what that meant is if you were trying to create a design or putting one thing behind or in front of the other, it's like the ice just stops in a really unusual spot. So for those, I felt like I couldn't really use them. So here I've got the big winter tree, and then I've got the fox on a log, and then I've got, I'm not sure if it's like an eagle or a hawk or something, and then the bird in the sky, and that balanced the card quite nicely. No paper in that one, so similar to when I used the dinosaurs. Here is water, or it's not water, I think that's ice and some trees, so it's like icy mountaintops. And I've put that at the top of the panel, and I'm committed to adding more things in front and doing my layering. So here I found another bit. I went to stick it down and it was in the wrong spot, but it started to stick and I had no choice. So I then just dropped that straight on. Because I'm layering, I'm not too worried about it, but I'm still kind of flicking through and pretty indecisive about whether something is going to work. So at this point, I'm thinking I'm not sure that for this card, I'm going to be able to find what I need to finish it off. But I flick back and forth through this pack multiple times, and in the end I just went for it and just grabbed the polar bear, chucked it on top. It covered a lot of the mountain range at the back, but I think it worked in the end. I think if it hadn't, honestly, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. And off camera now, I'm just cutting the stickers down a little bit, because one of the challenges with matting all of the pieces of paper and cardstock before you use them is if you want to put a sticker or something on it that goes off the edge, it's really, really fiddly to chop it so that the white border is not covered up. So I wouldn't put a sticker and then leave that overhang. So off screen, you'll just see me with my little cutter bee scissors here. I'm sort of peeling back the sticker and chopping it manually so that it lines up and you can see the clear white border. So now I have a mountain range in the back and I have 2 polar bears, one looking to the right, one looking to the left. And because, again, they're opaque, it doesn't look like you've layered stickers on top of each other, which to me just worked out really, really well. Probably not something that is my first choice of a card design, but it was fun again to try it out. And here's me chopping off some of the little sticker again because it's sticking out further than it should. With this little powder blue piece, I kind of like this design of, see how it's hanging off the edge? So you don't always have to see the whole white border. It just runs off the edge. You add the extra element to the top, a little quick sentiment, and it's all sorted. Now, these are all the cards that I made in this final section. I'm just running through. I've put ATG on them, and this is very satisfying to attach these to the card bases and have a huge stack of completed cards. I have put another video here if you enjoy this style that I think you might enjoy. Have a great day.